Don't let a DUI charge ruin your life. Get a professional and confidential evaluation from our experienced team at True Heights Treatment. Our evaluations are accepted by the majority of courts in the state of Illinois and provide a comprehensive assessment of your substance use patterns and potential treatment needs. Get the help you need today and start your path to a brighter future. Contact us now to schedule your evaluation at 708-248-7039 or at thtdui.com.
The George Brassey podcast is made possible with funding provided from Brassey Global Strategies, LLC, a leading political consulting, public policy, government affairs, and research firm. Are you interested in running for elected office? Need advice? Call or email George, 708-769-5015. Brassey Global Strategies 1 at gmail.com.
Hey everyone, I'm glad to welcome Alexandra Eidenberg, friend of the podcast, to the podcast for our first episode together. Alexandra, thanks for coming on.
George, I'm thrilled to be here with you today. Thanks for having me.
Usually we like to talk about people's individual biographies, and you have a very interesting one, and we will do an episode on that in the future. But today we're here to talk about the upcoming Democratic primary in the state of Illinois that's coming up in June this month. Alexandra, can you tell us a little bit about why the primary is in June this cycle instead of March, where it's been traditionally?
Great question, George. So everyone knows that the big remap happened. We did the census. That census changed how many votes everyone has and how the redistricting happened. With that redistricting came a new map. And with that new map, everything changed. And so it took our legislators a moment to get organized and to get on track for what that was going to be and how that was going to work. And so with that, they pushed out our primary, which is actually interesting because a lot of folks have been coming up to me lately saying, aren't we supposed to be voting right now? And no, we're not voting in April like usual or in March. And instead, we're going to be voting in June. And it's all about the remap and the redraw.
At the top of the ballot, Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to be asking for another 4 years. What are your thoughts and reflections on the first 4 years of Governor Pritzker's term?
So I'm a big JB girl myself. I will note to you that I have had the same yard sign in the front lawn of my office, which says JB and Juliana for Illinois. I have had that yard sign out the entire term and the entire year he ran for office, and it has not left the yard. I now think it's like a well-seasoned sign, and it's been through several snowstorms. Similarly, any administration goes through those hiccups and those ups and downs. What a time for all of our public servants, though. Serving during the pandemic could not be harder than I could possibly imagine. I've been very impressed with JB and his team. They've handled the pandemic well. They've handled our state well. And the biggest takeaway for me is our budget and how well we're doing financially, and the fact that we did that under him and with him. And so I've been very pleased, and I'm thrilled to have him at the top of our ticket. I think it really speaks widely that there's not a primary right now for him. We really know as Democrats that it's time to rally behind JB. It's time to rally behind Juliana. They've done a great job, and I'm looking forward to them serving another term.
Do you feel that Governor Pritzker is vulnerable on crime in the general election?
I think generally speaking, that is a topic where Republicans like to hit on Democrats. I don't think it's a conversation specifically about JB, but it's a talking point for the Republican Party. Republicans like to make it seem as though Democrats don't like police, and because they don't like police, they're fostering crime. I completely disagree with that. And if we feed into that, we become a part of that problem. We get into the messaging of the Republican Party. That balance and relationship with any law enforcement is critical. And I happen to be in a family and a circle of friends where there are firefighters, there are policemen, and that balance is really critical. We all know that no matter what job, whatever industry, we're always striving to be better. And as we look towards the future, to make sure that our police officers, our hardest working people are safe, but also that our communities are safe and that they feel safe, that's a balancing act. And I think that JB and his administration are working hard at it. And I don't think that we should, as Democrats, get engaged and involved in feeding into that Republican messaging that we are the problem that's creating crime.
The Republicans have quite a bit of money to try to get that message out. Who do you think on their side is the biggest threat to the governor?
Definitely Urban. I think we all know that he's a very strong candidate. He's shown that he's a great fundraiser, and it's going to take a lot of money for him to go up against JB. Kind of jokingly, I'm not sure anybody wants to go up against JB's money, but you hit the nail there. It really, George, Republicans have plenty of money. The question is, where are they putting it and how are they amplifying it? And this is definitely an investment that they're clearly making. And Urban has the ability, the connections, and the resume to definitely give JB a run for it. I think it really comes down to women and, voters of color. So women and, voters of color are going to be the critical component there, and understanding what side of the plate they're stepping up for. Typically, in most situations, you see people swinging one way or the other based on financial decisions. And so that really does rack up Republican votes. I don't think we're going to see that as much this time. JB is really taking the right steps to focus on lowering taxes for everyday folks. The budget here in Illinois is on track. It's balanced. We're seeing things get paid off better than ever before. So I think the typical messaging is not going to work. And I don't think the crime message is strong enough for the Republican Party. It's going to take a lot of money. And so we'll see what that looks like. But since JB has what really feels like bottomless pockets, this investment is going to be a big one for the Republican Party. And I don't think that they have it.
A little bit below JB, one of the most popular elected officials in the state of Illinois is no longer going to be on the ballot this upcoming election. Can you talk a little bit about that race?
You got it, George. So the Secretary of State race is definitely the hot race on the Democratic ticket, and we're all watching it very closely. This race is definitely between Alexi and Anna. So Alexi Janulius and Anna Valencia. We have what I call Team Moore also on the ballots. That's Sydney Moore and David Moore. But the race is really between Alexi and Anna. I am all in for Anna Valencia. She is amazing. She not only has proven herself in her service as clerk and the implementation, and if it comes to working with her staff or the innovation that she's brought to the office, the opportunities that she's brought to the table, it's also who she is as a human in our community. And as we look for that shift from generation to generation in who is serving our communities, Anna is a woman of color. She's a mom and she's a millennial, and she is amazingly great at what she does. And I could not be more excited that she's in this race. She's going to take so many things that that she's already done in that clerk's office and then bring it to the Secretary of State's office. And this is definitely why people like Jesse White, who's been serving forever and who we all love, are supporting her. Our governor, J.B. Pritzker, and our two favorite senators, Senator Dick Durbin and Senator Tammy Duckworth, they're all with her because of her amazing skill set, her ability to see through that equity lens, and everything she's done for our community. I think some of you might know that I am the Illinois State Chair for Vote Mama. We were one of her early supporters, and I can't wait to continue supporting her as we see her win this one. But let's be honest, this is going to be a big race, and Alexi's got a lot of money. He's already on TV. I'm sure many of you have seen his commercials. Anna's coming out on TV. Obviously, someone like Alexi, that banking background, coming from a family with money, he has the ability to self-fund and tap all of his wealthy friends. Anna's an everyday person. She is one of us. And so this race is definitely money meets everyday person. And so I am excited to see Anna shine through this. With that said, I do think Alexi's a great guy. I've known him for many years. He's very good people. And I don't want to say he's a bad person. And so if we end up with Alexi, we're all going to be A-okay, but I am Team Anna, and I'm excited to see her come out of the primary on top.
What do you think about some of the dirt that's being lobbed against her and her husband?
There's always dirt lobbed against people. I think that that's what campaigning is all about. You gotta roll with the punches. Interestingly, when women run for office or when people of color run for office, they end up in a situation where had that been a white man, they would have been getting kudos for it. But instead, if you're a woman or you're a person of color, or heaven forbid the combo, you end up in heat for some of those similar things. Same thing with Alexi, though. I think, as someone who, some of his resume has some splotches on it as well. And, I think that no matter which candidate it is, we're not looking at somebody that's perfect, but what Anna has to offer and her abilities, she is amazing. And I think that some of the spin going on, particularly spin that comes out of Mark Maxwell, and I think many of us know that Mark's journalism is not always as factual as some would prefer. I think some of the journalism coming off of his desk and some of the items coming off of his desk are just not factual. And I think that's really sad. But I also go back to being a woman and being a woman of color is not easy business. And Anna's taking the heat that she does always, but doing it on a public stage as a candidate running for a race that's at the top of the ticket. And so it is what it is. That's what campaigning is all about. The things come out of the woodwork, and it's about perseverance. And we're seeing her do that now as she continues to bring in thousands of dollars on a weekly basis. And as she shines through doing her job like a total queen at the clerk's office.
There's also been some changes with the remap as far as the congressional situation. Can you talk a little bit about the first congressional district and some of the candidates running there?
Sure. So for the first congressional district, that's actually not one of the ones that I'm watching as closely. And so, George, my favorite congressional district to watch right now is actually 17. And so I hate to change the subject on you there. I think that the first district is definitely important, and I'm watching that one. But for me, 17 really feels like the hot one. This particular race in the 17th, anyone that is a donor is just literally taking on calls left and right from people that are in that race. And so it is amazing to see it. Letisa Wallace is in that race. And some of you might remember that she ran side by side with Daniel Biss for governor. So it's great to see her back in that race again. But that race has some really amazing people. You have Jonathan Logman, and it might be Logman, and I apologize if I'm botching his last name. You have Eric Sorensen in that one as well. So between the three of them, literally my phone blows up at least several times a day. And with the text messaging, this is going to be a heated race. And right now, because it's such a crowded primary, it's going to be extremely difficult for anyone to raise money. And we're seeing that in the numbers. As they closed out the quarter, no one's able to bring in the money as easily because really no one's rallying strong behind any of the candidates. And everyone seems to be waiting for that to all hash itself out and for us to get on the other side of the primary. I will note for myself, I love Letisa. She's amazing. And I've had the opportunity of working with her when she was in the legislature. I think she did a great job when she ran with Daniel, and she's amazing people. I think the big question in this race is, what candidate do we want to see come out on the other side of the primary to be able to take on whichever Republican that is? Because that particular district is going to be a very hard win no matter what. And if it's Charlie or if it's Esther on the Republican side, it's going to be a race either way. And that particular seat is going to take way more money. And so I'm interested in seeing where things go in the 17th and what that all looks like.
Who do you support? Is it Letitia?
So I have not endorsed anybody in that race yet, George, and I don't plan on it. I will note that I have given a smaller donation to Letisa, and I've not donated to any of the other candidates. Letisa is definitely my girl, and I'd love to see her win. I think particularly for this race, I always think of which ones do I want to donate in and which ones do I want to work on their campaign. And in the 17th, for me, it's more of a watch. So this one's a watch. I'm watching and waiting. I did give Letisa a little bit because she is my girl, but I've not made a large investment into this race myself. I think this is a hold the cards one. Wait to see who comes out of the primary, because whoever comes out of the primary is going to need a ton of money. And so for me, I'm not putting money or time into this race until we get on the other side of the primary.
Now, is there a Republican currently in that seat in the 17th district, or is that going to be relatively new district?
That's a great question. So this is a very new district. So this is the district where Sherry Bustos served, but with the remap, it's a totally different draw. And so that draw being so different is really going to change the ability for it to be won. Many of us know that, Representative Bustos held ground in what would have traditionally been a very Republican area, but did it as a Democrat. And some of the values that Sherry Bustos had really worked for that community. Topics like gun control, topics like, a woman's right to choose, she had the right messaging and she did a great job holding that ground for a long time. With the redraw, it's even more red. And we have folks, depending on the part of the district they're in, are going to create a different vibe and a different series of voters. And so that particular district is very fresh and new. And in the redraw, sections of that were where the Democratic voting was coming from moved over to other districts. The real key was which parts can we redraw in order to maintain as many seats as we can here. And so it's been an interesting watch on what's happening. But I am hopeful that with the right candidate and the right financial investment, that we can keep the 17th blue.
Can you talk a little bit about the sixth district congressional race and your thoughts on that?
Sure. So I love that we're talking about this race. The 6th is definitely another favorite of mine. For those of you that don't know, the 6th is where Sean Casten has been serving, and Marie Newman, very sadly, with the redraw, got drawn out of her own district and really out of a seat. So where the pinch happened with our redraw was on Marie's seat. I kind of joke, George, Marie Newman is the only person who's ran for office that I've taken my shirt off for. And I say that because I marched with her in the Pride Parade, where I wore a sports bra and tiny shorts to match and waved rainbow flags and had the best time of my life. And so I love Marie Newman and she's amazing, but I am with Sean Casten on this one. This particular redraw is ripe for Sean. This particular redraw needs to keep someone who is a more moderate Democrat in it. And I hate to say it, but this is one of those moments where you need a white male. And so I think that we're all kind of tired of white males, and we know how that feels on multiple levels, both federal and local. But Sean's my guy on this one. I hosted an event for him at my home. He's amazing. George, you were, at that event supporting, you supported that event as well. Sean's an amazing man. He has that environmental background. He's been a great congressman. He's a great moderate, and he can take this one home for us and continue to maintain the seat. You guys might remember his heated primary when he came into this and then took on that seat. Kelly Majeski was in that race, and I was a big fan of Kelly. I actually supported her in that primary. And when Sean came out, the entire Democratic community rallied behind him. As this race continues, we've seen Marie have some hiccups on her integrity and on her honesty and some of the things that she's been doing within her campaign. Those items are concerning to me. And Sean has a great track record and does not have any of this baggage going on. So I am fully with Sean. I'm also co-hosting an event with him in a couple weeks here in the Wilmette area. And I'm excited to continue to support him in the primary. I think this is one to invest in immediately. When we look at where we're putting our dollar and we look at where we're spending, this particular race, I feel an investment in Sean for the primary is the right route to go. Is if we don't have Sean come out of this primary, we're going to lose this seat and it's going to go red. So I'm all with Sean on this one, and this is definitely an exciting race to watch.
And Newman doesn't even live in the district. Is that correct?
So with the draw, yes, she doesn't live in the district, and particularly, you don't have to live in the district in order to be a part of it. That's not how it works. However, with her squinch on the redraw, she did end up, that her seat was not viable for her. And so this became the area where it made sense and where a lot of her portion of the district ended up being. And so that's the sneakiness and the dirty part about redraws is it's all about that negotiating on who gets what section of the map. And it was a real bummer to see Marie get drawn out in that way. That was really led by the Latino caucus. And as someone who's very supportive of the Latino community, I do believe we need to see more seats in that direction. But it was very sad to see it while sparing, Marie got the brunt end of that stick and it stunk.
Al, the last question I always ask my guests are, what are 2 books that you would recommend? But today, since we're talking about primary candidates, who are 2 candidates that we haven't touched on that you would recommend that the listeners should learn about?
I love it. So I am extremely diehard for Ana Valencia. I know we've already talked about the Secretary of State race, but that is definitely a race that I'm making my investment in. And I will continue to work hard on that campaign in any capacity I can. One of the further down ballot races that I think is important to note is the water reclamation. And I know that your listeners are all over Illinois. This is definitely really about greater Chicago. But I think often we forget about water reclamation. And as we come into all the environmental challenges going on in our communities, global warming, really focusing on the environment is critical. And this particular role, making the decisions about the use of our water, how we're taking care of it, and what that looks like is so important. Deb Shore served in this capacity for a very long time. And, Josina Marito is in there. There was a lot of changes to water rec with the shifting of the seats and where things were going. And in this particular race, I am keenly watching. So on this ballot, you will have a pick 3 for the 6 year and a pick 1 for the 2 year. In that pick 3, it really is a hot race between Frank Avila, Mariana Spyropoulos, Yumika Brown, Patricia Teresa Flynn, and Precious Brady Davis. There's some other folks in that race, but that's really the crux of where the race is at. And between those 5 people, it is going to be heated and heavy. And for those of you that have been, voting and watching where you have the pick 3s or the pick 4s, these are totally a hit or miss, because what happens is some folks will do what's called bullet voting, where they only vote for 1. Other folks will pick a different combination of 3. And it really will come out to who's going to, get that best opportunity to be in a series of pick 3. I definitely think that Mariana is going to come out on top on this one, and Yumika. So I think that no matter how the cake slices, Mariana and Yumika are going to be the 2 rising stars in this one, getting the vast majority of the vote. And it's that 3rd seat that's really going to be up in the air. And so I'm really excited to see where that goes. For those of you that don't know, Patricia Teresa Flynn goes by Teresa. And so there is another Teresa on the ballot, but Teresa Flynn, Precious Brady Davis, and Frank Avila, I believe that 3rd seat's going to be between them 3. And we'll see where the cards lie. And like I said, just environmentally, this is a very important race. And also we've seen a lot of shift in this particular arena. And so this pick 3 is going to be important. For the pick 1 for the 2-year term, that race is really gearing up to be between Pogo and Keena Perry. So Daniel Pogo, and then I always botch his real last name. It's Pogo Zareski, I believe. And then Shakina Perry, who goes by Keena. So it's Keena and Pogo in this one. And so Pogo has a lot of party support. Keena got appointed into the seat and has the support of JB. And so that pick 1 for the 2 years is really going to be the hot race here. And I will note, George, I am all in for Keena Perry. For those of you that don't know Keena, she is amazing. This woman has done, like, when you think about people's resumes and the things they bring to the table, Keena's resume is probably 10 pages of what she's done within the Democratic Party in serving our community, in addition to all of her accolades as well as her education. And so she is just absolutely fantastic. And I am so thrilled to be supporting her for the pick 1 2-year term for water rec. And so I think water rec is a race to watch. I keep telling everyone, Ana Valencia. If there was another race that I would keep my eye on, I know you said to pick only 2, but my second pick, would really, just very Cook County driven, and that's Cook County Assessor. And I really highly recommend supporting Fritz Kagi as we look to where we can go in our communities and balancing those taxes, not on the backs of everyday people. That is what Fritz has done for our community. He has worked hard for equity. He has worked hard to clean up that office. He has taken down that Barrios machine. And he has implemented processes that are fantastic. And he is doing a great job. Right now, Fritz is definitely my guy in that race. Carrie Steele is a wonderful woman. She's terrific. However, we need to stay away from that Barrios supported, machine-y, controlled politics, money movement, lacing pockets of real estate attorneys, and focus on everyday people and fairness in our taxes. And that's what Fritz Kagi does. So I'm all in for Fritz Kagi for the Cook County Assessor.
Alexandra Eidenberg, thank you so much for coming on my podcast. If someone wanted to learn more about you or become your friend like I did pretty quickly, how would they do that?
I think the best thing to do is probably find me on Facebook, and you can just search my name on Google, Alexandra Eidenberg. And if instead you wanted to get a little bit boring, I do own an insurance agency, which is my boring day job. And you can find me at insuranceppl.com, which is insurance, our favorite word, and the letters PPL, pampamlauren.com. And we can get boring on insurance on that website.
Alexandra Eidenberg, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, George. Have a great day.
Bye.
Help George stay on the Chicago Heights City Council. Go and donate today at tinyurl.com/AldermanGeorge 2023.
Begin to transform your life and work towards inner peace with expert psychotherapy. At True Heights Treatment, our experienced therapists provide personalized, compassionate care to help you overcome life's challenges and reach your goals. Whether you're struggling with depression, anxiety, relationship issues, or other mental health concerns, our team is here to support you. With a warm and welcoming in-person and virtual office atmosphere and a commitment to person-centered and evidence-based treatments, we are dedicated to helping you address your life's challenges. Contact us now to schedule your first session at 708-248-7039 or online at trueheightstx.com. Book your appointment today and start your journey towards a happier, healthier life.
Need more George? Like his pages on Facebook. Friends of George Brassey PAC, Fifth Ward Business Alliance, Chicago Heights Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center, and the George Brassey Podcast.